Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And I'm a doppelganger.
Still hunting down a sex demon.
Still hunting. And if you want to know what we're referring to by that, you have to become a parajunkie and watch The Fix. Because,
yes.
We thought we were unboxing a sex demon, but actually the sex demon is loose in Chris's house. So if you want to know more, go join us on Patreon.
The crazy thing is like that's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
Like that's not a joke.
It's not satire.
No, it's not. I am concerned and actively looking for a lost.
Going to be chewing on.
Yeah,
it.
I know.
It's wild.
It's worrisome.
It really is. But for those of you who are listening, we also have Eni here today.
Yay! We always love having Eni.
Yes, and Eni, just so you know, the ghosts have been acting up, as you know, with our tech equipment. So we've had to let them introduce themselves now whenever we have a guest so that they are on their best behavior. So y'all say what you got to say.
They've arrived. We've been expecting them. Stories. Let us welcome our guest, if they dare stay. Make sure they're very comfortable. Are you comfortable? What stories are you going to tell us today?
They worked really hard on that.
I like it.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is to get the headphones on them.
Yeah, it
It
is.
just keeps going through their heads.
It does. But also, like I was just mentioning with Patreon, y'all, we are currently working to get Ghosts up and running. You probably have heard me talk about this already, but basically what Ghost is going to be, it's going to be a nice RV that is going to be wrapped with the Haunted City Podcast logo. And we are going to be traveling in said RV to a bunch of haunted locations. And it is going to be super fun because we're going to be able to do the podcast live on location, then get to go do an investigation. So if you would like to see us do that, the best way to support us is through Patreon. You can become a parajunkie. You can watch The Fix, where we search for a sex demon or we talk about ghost current events or all sorts of things. And you get to join lots of different communities. You get all of the episodes ad-free every single time, which is phenomenal because I know personally I hate ads. But if you do not want to become a parajunkie, you can donate to us on Venmo if you want to see this project come to fruition. And that is going to be Ghost with an S Tip Jar. So GHOSTS Tip Jar on Venmo.
Cool.
But with that, though, I think we should get into our ghost mail for today.
Yes, we've got ghost mail. Moody.
Ooh.
Yeah.
ambience.
Oh, yeah.
I really feel like we stepped into like a haunted mansion ride.
Yes. Yeah. I'm waiting
That's
for
the
the whole
vibe.
table just.
Please
Don't give me ideas, y'all.
remain
I will
seated in your
shake that
doom
damn
buggy.
table.
Honestly,
If it were a tipping table,
Yeah.
that'd be kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
Could make the seances more fun.
it
Yeah.
would. Yeah, absolutely.
You see also if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify video, Ghostmail has its own lighting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's very blue and pink, little purple.
It's very fancy. Thank you, JT.
So you know
got it.
just by looking
got
at
it.
the screen what we're doing.
we're fancy now. But all right, everybody, let's get into this ghost mail. Lock in. So our first one is going to come from Josh, and the email was titled "A Possible Airbnb Experience." One of our favorites.
Ooh.
We love a good haunted Airbnb. So
Savannah's chock full of them.
yeah, they sure are. So, hi, Madison, Chris, and JT, and Eni. I am a longtime listener, and I absolutely love your podcast. I appreciate your take on the paranormal with the humor and history that you weave into your content. Thank you. We are also just fools, so we like to make things funny.
Yeah.
We appreciate that, though. It is so interesting to think of life beyond what we know. I have a short story that occurred a few months ago to share with you. My wife and I are from Ohio, and we visited back in September. We come to Savannah several times a year. I first read the book while vacationing in Hilton Head, the book meaning Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
So I cannot explain this, but somehow my sock, which is a compression sock, has come all the way undone to my heel, like under my shoe. And my shoe is an orthopedic shoe that is strapped to my foot very tightly. I do not know how this happened. I'm afraid we might have found our sex demon.
She's like,
I mean, look at this.
she's like,
She's undressing
hello,
Chris.
Christopher.
Wow.
You rang.
This is
Yeah. That's
is
wild.
a very tight
Well, yeah,
compression sock.
it is a compression sock, so
So it should not be going anywhere.
that is so bizarre.
I'm freaked out. I mean, and it happened just now.
That's-
Did you feel it?
I felt it go under my heel,
Stop
and I
it.
couldn't figure out what was happening. And when I looked down, I was like, "Why can't I see my ankle?"
That's crazy.
they just wanted to see your ankle.
Yeah, I know. Ribbled. Victorian ghosts love ankles. Oh.
Rowan said,
Naughty.
"Ooh, it likes the ankles."
That's right.
Yes,
I don't.
it does.
That's so weird. I've
That's
never ever
bizarre.
had anything like that happen, like with these socks, because they are compression socks.
Yeah.
They're supposed to squeeze your feet until all the blood stops moving. All right, or something like that.
Well, we'll see what happens to Chris next. So, but Josh said, I first read the book, meaning Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, while vacationing in Hilton Head, and it began my massive interest in Savannah history and the paranormal. I agree. It's a great start to really learning to love Savannah.
It was the introduction to most of the 21st century tourism.
Yeah.
Like we had a huge tourism boom thanks to that book. When I first arrived here, everyone called it the book. They didn't reference it by name, and I had no idea what they're talking about. So they'd come up to me and they'd ask me, "Have you read the book?" And I'd be like, "The Bible?" Because it's the only the book I know of. And I'm like, "Yeah, I've read the book." And they're like, "Oh, I just love the book." It was like, "Yeah, a lot of people do."
Yeah, really
They're like,
popular.
"I just love the drag queen." And I'm like, "Whoa, you've got the New Testament." Because I don't have no drag queens in my Bible. I wish that would be so awesome.
You never know what Judas was doing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And Simon was, a zealot. So
That is true. Trisha said foot fetish demon. I mean, you never know. You never know. Everybody who didn't watch that fix is probably so confused. So we will keep on moving.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. In my opinion, the squares are some of the most peaceful places I have ever visited. I completely agree, except for some of them. It's
I was gonna say, there's a few that'll raise a hackle or two.
Yeah.
But for the most part, especially in daytime Savannah and nighttime Savannah are two
very
different animals.
Yeah.
Avoid Ellis Square and Most of those other squares, like Franklin and Johnson,
Yeah,
after
the
like
fringe
9:30 at night.
squares. Watch the fringe squares after,
But-
after 9.
Exactly. But Monterey Square is their favorite.
Oh, it's a beautiful square.
I love Monterey Square as well. Also, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but I feel like Monterey Square always has like a light fog over it.
It does
It's
always
like
seem
a-
to have kind
yeah,
of a haze.
like a
I was gonna say
haziness.
haze, or
Yeah.
like they put the Vaseline on the camera gel.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this is such a beautiful square.
But we enjoy your city so much that we often think about making the move and being transplants. You should do it. I always say everybody should move to Savannah.
So many people have that story. It's like, well, we fell in love with the place and now we're living here.
Kind of has that.
Join us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the weather is so much nicer, I'm sure. No brutal winters. So
No brutal
sounds
winters.
great.
We had
that
a
little bit of
day
snow.
of a
That's
brutal
true.
winter
A
One.
touch. But
in like 5 years.
yeah, basically. My wife and I are both religious, so the idea of the afterlife has a lot to do with our worldview and our hope. In September, we booked a weekend trip with an Airbnb on Tatnall Street, which is a beautiful street. It was a beautiful cottage built in the 1800s. After unpacking, we went to the Pink House, Artillery Bar, and walked around the city. That night, while sleeping upstairs, my wife felt like she was kicked out of the bed and naturally blamed me for doing so.
Ah.
Rational. Which, of course, I did not. The
I
ni-
feel like this ghost mail might be an alibi.
Yeah, literally. He's like, see, honey, I didn't kick you out of the bed. They agree. But no, we have your back, Josh. It's the ghost. The next night, we slept downstairs, which had a completely different vibe. This is the first and only occasion that I think I may have had with the paranormal. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the smell of a woman's perfume. The perfume smelled very much like it could have been from an older time as well. My wife also woke up several times that night after hearing footsteps next to her. We were not frightened by it, but it was definitely alarming, and it seems that I may have some pull with the ghost ladies. Wow, just like Chris. We we are not sure what to think of this experience, and it very well could have been nothing. Either way, it is fascinating to think about. Thanks so much for what you do. I sincerely appreciate what you all do, Josh. Well, thank you, Josh.
Noise.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's very Savannah. It's kind of hard to find a house where somebody says, oh, nothing paranormal happens here,
Right.
especially
Oh, yeah.
downtown. Everybody's got a ghost story. People are very proud of their house ghosts. So, Tatnall Street being as close to the northern historic district, if you will, makes sense that you're going to get a little bit more activity, I guess, because that's going to be a place where it's been there longer, so a lot more people could have come through there, and you might, more than likely what it sounds like, you probably were dealing with some kind of residual haunting, unless it was a lady ghost who wanted to yeet your wife out of the bed.
And it's interesting because I think there are several places all around the world that have the flirty woman ghost who's kind of harsh on women, but very like lovey-dovey on men.
Why can't we get like flirty lesbian ghosts?
Right?
Where are the lesbian ghosts?
Make yourself known.
They're content.
I guess so. But yeah, I mean, it sounds very accurate to Savannah.
Yes,
and
that's a very Savannah
yeah.
story.
yeah, so I totally believe that story. And this
And if you join Patreon, we'll give you a name of a ghost to, cover up
to cover up the
Yeah.
kicking,
the kicking
situation.
of your wife.
But the smell of a woman's perfume, that also is a
Yep.
very common occurrence in a lot of different places in Savannah. I mean, because think about it. People back then weren't bathing as much as we do. So you know what you do? You spray some perfume on it. And it smells a little bit better.
Per lotion.
Exactly. So I think that's a great first paranormal experience. And what a great way to
Yes,
spend
that
your
is
vacation.
a gentle, it wasn't a screaming banshee pulling her face off.
That's always nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be your first.
No.
You should ease into screaming faceless banshees.
At least you didn't book the Airbnb that had the oil crosses coming out of the walls.
right,
You
right.
know, that would have been, I'm kind of terrified of that. So I think that's great. So thank you, Josh. Thank you for sending it in. And Ashley, who's one of our Parajunkies, also just transplanted from Ohio. And she said, can confirm Savannah winter is much more pleasant than Ohio winters. So let that be your sign, Josh. But, all right. So our next one comes from Faith. And this email was titled Dead Loved One Visiting in a Dream. Hello, Chris, Madison, and JT, and Deanie. My name is Faith, and I have a little experience that I thought you four, would find interesting involving a dream I once had. I'll just set up some background information before jumping into the story. When I was 5, my little brother died of SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, at 7 weeks old. I'm very sorry to hear that, Faith. Every year since his death, my mom makes a point to celebrate his birthday and, for a lack of better word, his death day. She always made a point to allow my sister and me to have a place to talk about him because our dad never let us. But unlike my sister, who was 9 when he died, I don't have many memories of him. The only one I could recall was the day he died, which I don't like to think about. This story happened when I was 18 or so, after we celebrated his birthday. My mom and sister talked all day about their favorite memories of him in the short time we had him in our lives. I, on the other hand, sat there in self-pity thinking about how shitty I felt for not remembering him. Well, don't be so hard on yourself, Faith. You were 5. I mean, our brains can only compute so much at that age. The day went on like any other day, and by the end of it, I was ready for bed. I fell asleep quickly, and that's where the real story starts. I'm going to put this out there, but I'm not one to remember dreams ever, and if I do, they're very weird and strange. But this one wasn't. It was quite normal, actually. Dream me woke up and went on to get dressed and ready like any other day. From my room upstairs, I could hear my little brother, who was born after the death of the other brother, and who we will call Henry for the sake of his privacy, chatting away downstairs, but I never heard anyone talking back. But Dream me didn't seem to be weirded out by this, and I just continued my morning routine. Once I was ready, I headed down the stairs and took a right into our kitchen to get something for breakfast. When I turned into the kitchen, I saw Henry sitting at the table talking away to some random kid who looked to be 13 or 14. That I had never seen before. I wasn't afraid of this random teen. In fact, I seemed to know him because I continued on with going to make my breakfast. As I made myself breakfast, I felt eyes on me, and Henry stopped talking all of a sudden. I turned to look back to the kitchen table where they sat and found the teen looking at me. This was the first time that I got a good look at him. He looked at me, well, a bit like me. Or he looked like me, well, a bit like me. He looked like me if I looked more like my dad. The same brown hair and green eyes. As I looked at the teen, he gave me a smile and said, "It's okay." I was confused. I thought, "Okay, weirdo," and went back to making breakfast. And as if he was reading my mind, he continued, "It's okay that you don't remember me because we will be together again someday." That's when I woke up with tears streaming down my face. I can't say 100% that it was my little brother, but he would have been the same age as the boy in my dream. Part of me tried to rationalize it. Maybe it could have been my subconscious, but I like to believe he came to visit me and tell me that everything was okay. I've only had one other dream like this, and in that dream, I was a mother to a little boy with sandy blonde hair. Flash forward a few years, and now I am the mother of a little boy with sandy blonde hair. This is why I fully believe my brother did come to visit me and reassure me that it was okay that I didn't remember him fully. But I would like to know what he meant by "we will be together again someday." Thank you for taking the time to read my story and for always giving me a good spook. Lots of love, Faith.
Wow.
Right.
That's a fantastic story.
That's a fantastic story.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said many times that the most common ghost story that we hear is, "On the night my blank died, they visited me in a dream." Having loved ones visit you in a dream is Ghost 101. That is absolutely the most common ghost story there is, because it is playing upon our memories and how they live in our subconscious and how that energy lives and exists. And what a ghost truly is a form of remembrance, whether it be environmental or physical or in your own brain, however that works. We had touched upon this once before, but I think it's worth a reexamination of the idea that spirits, if a child dies, especially an infant dies, it can grow. Mm-hmm. If it is still being honored and remembered year by year, it has all kinds of connection to the idea of growth and the idea of growing older and having more experiences. And through watching siblings grow, watching the environment change, they can alter their appearance to mimic the aging, so that an infant who passes if it is honored and continuously thought of and celebrated, might hang around and absorb the environment and grow to be of a certain age. Now, the interesting thing, you actually said it. You said the only other dream you ever had was that you would have this child with sandy hair, and your brother said that you'd be together again. The fact that you didn't put those two things together, the fact that those two dreams are bridged to one another, there's a strong suggestion that your brother might be your son, might be in the spirit of your son or attached in some way to your son so that he can experience life as a living being. Since you had only these two dreams to sort of navigate the supernatural, paranormal, or ghost story realm, it would seem, at the very least, likely that that's what is connected. However, if you want just a more blanket construct of what a spirit means when they say we'll be together, it just means that we're never truly separated from the people that we love or the people in our lives. We're never truly separated from anything because the universe binds everything together so well that after our death, we can be reunited. You hear countless tales of that. In other lives, we can be reconnected. In just the notion of returning to a cosmic everything, you can be reunited. So yeah. Lovely story, though.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there's a belief that people can have what is considered soul families, and I know that term sounds very hippy-dippy, but bear with me. Basically, the concept is that you travel with a group of souls through many lifetimes. And so it's very possible that that's why your brother, like Chris was saying, could have possibly come back and been your child. But yeah, it's regardless, though, you should see it as just a very lovely way of getting validation, if anything. And maybe you do have a little bit of psychic abilities through dreams. So maybe that's something you should explore as well if you're interested in doing that. Eni, do you have any thoughts?
I'm a big believer that our loved ones live on through us, not just through our memories, but through our actions. Just simple, everyday things that we do honor them. And even if her son isn't a reincarnated version of her brother, her loving her son and taking care of her son and giving her son the experiences that her brother would have had is a way of honoring him and helping him live on through her son.
That's a great way to put it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So thank you, Faith. That was a fantastic story. And so our next one comes from, they wanted to just be referred to as M, and it was titled Mass Hole Moments or Mass Haunted.
All right.
Can you guess where they're from? But
It's wicked.
yes.
Wicked smart.
Wicked smat.
Hi, Chris, Madison, and JT, and Edie. We don't usually get that many in a row.
Where they name everybody.
Yeah. My name is M. I wanted to send you some of my personal experiences. I found your podcast a few months ago and have been hooked ever since. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
I love hearing your thoughts and explanations for different experiences. And it has recently had me thinking of a few things from my past and a crazy story from a client. So let's get into it. So the first story is past stuff. I grew up in Massachusetts in a very, very old farmhouse. So that was probably haunted.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
This house was built in 1812 and was one of the original structures in the town. Because this house is so old, it is a historic structure in the town, and there is some history that is known about it. This house belonged to some of the original settlers in our town and then was passed to a doctor who used one of the back rooms to see patients. That's always a good sign.
Oh, yeah. No.
I grew up homeschooled, so my siblings and I were always exploring the giant old house and the 30 acres it sat on. It also had a large red barn directly next to it. So far, we have found a bottle dump on the property with a ton of old medical bottles and tools. There also has been a ton of animal bones found all over the land, an old giant well, and old farm tools. I have always been able to feel energy and what I can only describe as a presence in the house. The house always made very weird creaks and noises. My bedroom was directly attached to a hallway that also had the stairs to the attic. I have always felt a dark looming presence at the top of the staircase to the attic. For almost as long as I can remember being in that house, I would have nightmares every night, often the same exact nightmares. This also made it so that I wouldn't want to go to sleep, so I would lie in bed awake. I often felt like something dark was coming down the stairs and coming into my room, to the point where my bedroom door that was directly adjacent to the attic stairs would creak open. I tried to chalk it up to the latch on the door being old, but it got to the point where I would put my desk chair in front of the door to make sure it couldn't open at night. I always felt like something was in the house and was active at night. The only way I could sleep was if I wrapped myself in a blanket and only left a small air hole for my mouth. I still sleep like this to this day. And a lot of bad things have happened to my family since being at that house. So the next section is titled The Barn. We had baby chickens and ducks we kept in one of the barn stalls. They were young enough, and this is New England, that we also put in a small heating lamp for the fall. One night, I feel my brain jolt awake for no apparent reason, but I feel the need to wake my brother up. We had rooms right next to each other. I decide we need to go downstairs and raid the fridge. We go downstairs, and my mom, dad, and sister are panicking and grabbing things. We then find out the barn that is directly next to the house is up in flames. We all made it out of the house safely, but the barn burnt to the ground. When I tell you something saved the house, the caulking between the bricks closest to the side of the barn had caught on fire. There was a line of flames starting to go up to the roof, and it stopped within 1.5 inches of the roof.
Wow.
Had it made it to the roof, the house would have been gone. The fire was extremely hard to put out. One of the firemen got injured, but they luckily stopped the flames before it hit the roof. Talk about divine timing with the firemen. The flames not getting to the roof and the weird feeling I had that made me wake both myself and my brother up at the same exact time I needed to. To this day, I feel like my team of guardians or spirits woke me up. The next section is titled Dreams. I mentioned I have always had nightmares since living in the house. Often it would be a nightmare about a large black shadowy presence coming down the attic stairs, opening my bedroom door and watching me sleep. I also had a version of the dream where I knew something evil was living up there and that it was drawing my family members up into the dark shadowy attic. I have also had multiple dreams as an adult no longer living there where my siblings and I are lured up to the attic, and then the house is on fire and we can't escape. These dreams usually came with aching dread, cold sweats, and paranoia. The next section is titled Tunnels. Everyone in this small town knows each other. One of the older gentlemen in the town stopped by to visit because he remembered playing on the property as a child. He said he remembered there being tunnels under the house that he and his friends would use in games of hide and seek. He said the tunnel started under the house and came out somewhere in the nearby woods. He no longer remembers where the tunnel let out. He discovered in the basement there is a wall that has been filled in with dirt, but you can clearly see the top foundation stone for a tunnel entrance. When we asked the previous owner, she said she walled it up because the tunnels were so old that they could cave in and were unsafe. We also later learned that these tunnels were built and used during the Underground Railroad to aid in an escape route. My siblings and I have spent countless hours in the woods searching for the other entrance to the tunnels with no luck. My childhood there was not the best. The vibe in the house was always dark and heavy. My parents had a rocky divorce. My dad is now an alcoholic and refuses to leave that house. Funnily enough, my mom now lives in Salem, Massachusetts, and is a full-time witch and tarot reader. Coincidence? I still have very unsettling dreams about things happening in that house to this day and feel a very bad energy anytime I'm there. Massachusetts has a very weird, dark energy.
It does indeed.
It definitely does. Now, I want to tell you a recent story that happened to one of my clients and friends. Fast forward to now, I am a massage therapist and body worker. I have a very good sense of energy, and that helps me in my massage job. This happened last October. The general collective energy had been really weird with the upcoming election, everything in Gaza, the supermoon, and multiple hurricanes hitting the U.S. My client came in, and instantly I felt really heavy energy. So I asked her what was up, expecting the normal chaotic life stuff. But what she told me had me crawling in my skin. She had a partner who committed suicide in her garage. She and their dogs were the ones that found him.
Oof.
Oh, no.
That's brutal. Since then, she has been in intensive trauma therapy. This October, she finally felt ready to start renovating the house and changing things so she could stay in the house and not be triggered. She doesn't have the ability to just move houses. Her renovation of the house would include changing the garage and adding a garden with a trellis and a fountain to the backyard so that she could feel safe in a beautiful space. She also felt really connected to water after his death, so the fountain was going to be her way to honor him. Okay, strap in. I love that. As she started changing and fixing things around the house during the month of October, she had been feeling really depressed and heavy, falling back into old depressive spirals and emotions, also feeling cold a lot. She starts working on things in the garden herself and accidentally hurts her back and is out of commission for a week or so. Days later, she has workers in the backyard installing the trellis. One of the support beams falls and crushes her dog, a small Chihuahua-sized dog. Oh, that's... The dog should not have survived that accident, but it miraculously pulls through.
Oh.
Wow.
Whew. That was a roller coaster.
Yeah, it really
what
was.
the heck?
Even the vet said the dog shouldn't have survived. Days later, the workers are working on her house when one of them falls off a ladder and lands on his head and neck.
Good God.
The worker is non-responsive for a few minutes and is rushed to the hospital in a coma. Miraculously, he wakes up from the coma and is starting to recover. She says these events all happen in a small time span and all happen with the changing of the house. And even worse, the locations of all the accidents form a perfect triangle with the future location of the commemorative fountain in the middle of it.
Whoa.
That's
weird.
insane.
Whoa.
Okay.
I instantly got extremely bad energy from that. I felt like I could see her home and I could see a very dark presence in it. I also had this weird feeling that this presence was the reason for her partner committing suicide.
Sure.
I am connected to a lot of witchy energy workers and talked to one of my friends who is an energy worker who specializes in demon attachments. She is from Salem, Mass, and has had demons attached to her since birth that she has worked hard to remove. Now she offers the same work to her clients. She actually ended up moving out of the Salem, Mass area as the energy was so negative. She was seeing demons around her all the time, and it was very, very unsettling. As I am telling her what my client said, her entire body has goosebumps. Before I even give her my take on the situation, she says something very dark and very powerful is feeding off her and that house, and it drove her partner to suicide. She also mentioned that it was extra powerful during the month of October as the veil was thin. When I tell you I was shook, in all caps. So I connected my client with some local energy/spirit workers and a shaman. I also told her to stop all construction until the land in the house was has a full cord cutting and cleansing from a shaman, maybe a possible exorcism. I also got her a ton of protection stones and amulets and things to put around her house and keep actively on her person when she's there, as well as informing her to be extra careful and cautious. Well, that was a lot. I am sorry if that was hard to read or confusing at all, but when she told me about this, my first thought was Madison, Chris, and JT will know. I hope y'all enjoyed hearing these experiences, and I can't wait to hear your takes. If you guys have any ideas as to what that type of entity could be, and also any other ideas for helping her in her situation would be greatly appreciated. I love your podcast so much. It makes folding laundry and driving or any other mundane task a pleasure. Thank you so much. Keep being lovers of the creepy and spooky. You all are such cool humans. Well, thank you, Em. Yeah, that was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's start with your experiences in your home. I think you were picking up on something in your attic, being parasitic or what have you. And And I feel like it might have some type of control over fire. That
would make sense.
Weirdly enough, it gave me the same vibes as the Conjuring house.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, the Conjuring House barn did catch fire.
It did.
Just, right before we went there.
And so, it's very strange, especially the part where you're saying that the fire almost got up to the roof, but it stopped with like half an inch or something like that. That is very peculiar. And if there is something that's, lurking up in your attic or whatever, it could be a total possibility that it didn't want its space ruined.
Oh, right. No. Absolutely. It wanted to expose its power without destroying its habitat.
Exactly.
No, it's worth revisiting my attics and basement theory that conceptually, when people say a house is haunted, the most haunted places are the attic and the basement. Don't go in the attic. Don't go in the basement. Which is weird because people don't live in the attic or the basement. Those aren't places where we generally spend all of our time. And yet, time and time again, people are quick to point out that those are the places where they feel the most energy or resist, these things. And my general theory is that things in the attic are trying to avoid being underground because they know the power and force of rituals for underground, because that's where we put things to rest. That's where we put things to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And so any spirits you find in the attic are the ones that are fighting to stay. They can be very dark, very powerful, and very potent, and dangerous. The ones in the basement, though, kind of understand that they're dead or that they don't belong in this realm. And they're usually in the basement, oftentimes full of woe and darkness because they can't move on for whatever reason, but they understand that their place is underground, so they stay underground. So the fact that you had a spirit sensation from the attic, your dreams suggested that it was trying to lure you up into the attic. That is again, we use the word demon a lot. It's not the sense of, something straight from hell, but a dark parasitic force that is actively seeking the energy of the living in order to keep its hold on this realm. And it is kind of scary to think that your father might be a conduit or a feed bag for it. I believe one of our parajunkies, Rowan, actually said that it sounded like your father might be under the influence of the attic ghost. And it's true. Oftentimes people surrender to these spirits. They can't imagine leaving it, but they get into a rut and they get into like this kind of lifestyle. It's called oppression. There's a demonic oppression that it makes you behave in a certain pattern where you can't escape, you can't fight back, or you actually don't even want to. You've just become a submissive, complacent entity, feeding the darkness, because it becomes kind of a symbiotic relationship.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that your dad might be deeply influenced by this entity. And it might also be why your mom maybe had some type of spiritual awakening or something after she left the house, and why she was able to tap in, because sometimes when you have such oppressive energy around you, I'm sure you know as an energy worker, it can kind of smush down your own abilities just because it's too overwhelming for your senses. So, I mean, I definitely agree with you that there probably is something not great going on in the attic. And, you know, if it was a place that had a lot of emotions coming through, if the tunnels were used for the Underground Railroad, it's a lot of really intense feelings that are going to be left behind. And it could have been maybe feeding off of that energy for a long time, but now it's losing all of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you find stuff like that. Like you said, I don't really like to use the word demon because I grew up evangelical in the Bible Belt during the Satanic Panic, and everything was a demon.
Right. But it's an easy word. It's an easy catch-all
word to use.
Yeah, we don't mean, you know,
usually I just refer to them as like entities.
Right.
Because there are definitely entities that like to feed on a lot of negativity. You see them in like old forts and battlegrounds and like places where like a lot of really heavy stuff has happened.
Right.
So that kind of connects back to the last story.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Something that's
so dark.
It was there. It was attracted to that energy, and it's feeding off of it. And the last one, not trying to freak you out or anything, but the last one seems like it's gotten like a lot of energy, and it can not only like pull energy, it can expel it.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. You know, one of the tragic situations when you're dealing with people who take their own lives is these unanswered questions of the path and journey of their depression and what they were carrying and the weight that they were carrying and how it crushed them. But when you start to expand beyond that, it's like that person was just a battery and a machine that was emanating darkness. Whether they were the source to begin with or not, when they are gone, that darkness is still there and still requires a power source, an energy source. And it doesn't take even, you know, rudimentary Google search to see a triangle with a circle in it being a very symbolic, you know, that's the all-seeing eye. That's, you know, it gives you a notion of, at the very least, the organization of thought behind the darkness, that the darkness is acting in a pattern. And whenever you start to see patterns, what you realize is that it's probably because of observation, because that people have been observing the darkness, and it starts to play into your expectations and what you're hoping to see and what you're looking to find. Darkness tries to communicate with us, and it will look for the ways that we will most readily accept it. So it starts to come up with symbols that will bear upon our minds, so that we will act upon them, so that we will interact with them, because darkness just wants to consume. And any light that's inside of you is fair game. So it's really a bizarre like pattern of behavior where you're trying to shine brighter, but it's trying to eat up all the light. And so it becomes so difficult. And that's why it becomes difficult to prescribe. It becomes difficult to say, hey, what do I do about this? It's like, well, you know, the first knee-jerk reaction is get out of there. You're going to leave. Right. That's not always an option. I understand, and that's true. But it also has to be about facing a darkness. And when you face the darkness, know that it's your light it's after. So sometimes you are going to be called upon to shine brighter than you've ever shined before. You know, be more of who you are, because every time you take a step back from yourself, every time you start to reduce yourself, the space between who you were and who you are is where the darkness lives. So you have to actually act more. You have to do more of who you are, assert yourself, create things, be loud, be yourself, because there wouldn't be any room for the darkness then.
Yeah. First off, therapy is great. Go to therapy.
Yes,
therapy.
absolutely.
Well, and she is in therapy.
Yes. And stay in therapy.
Stay in therapy. Yes.
But, you know, there's always a rush to like blame mental health issues on demons. I think that they can work in tandem.
Well, it's just another word in some instances when it really comes down to it. Because, the quote unquote darkness does not have to be a physical thing. It does not have to be a malicious thing. It can literally just be that depression that we don't face down.
And here's the thing, like, we are human, we are living, breathing humans, and there are rules that apply to the spiritual world that do not apply to us.
Facts.
And in the long run, we are meaner, we are tougher, and we are bigger than any of that darkness out there.
Yes. Yeah. That's such a
good
good
way to put
point,
it.
because a lot of people feel helpless against the, others, the unseen, but this is our domain. This is where we belong. They are infringing. They don't have a place here. That's why they have to inhabit, and that's why they have to goad, and that's why they have to possess.
Yeah.
We inherit it naturally. It belongs to us. So you do have the power to command. You do have the power to turn things away and to say no, because we write the rules as living beings.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree, because I do think that it's testing your client in the way of, she's finally starting to feel a little bit better, wants to bring back joy, bring things that make her happiness. And what does it do? It shows her, I have full control. So yeah, I think it is an intimidation tactic. And as for like cleansing and stuff, of course, you can bring in shamans and various different people who do cleansings. But sometimes when you deal with these entities and you don't know where they originate from, it can be a little tricky, because they might not understand the practices of a shaman, or they might not understand the practices of a witch or whatever, So I would say if those things work, fantastic. Still keep a guard, if you will.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't suppress, keep trying different things.
Right.
Because, like I said, you don't know.
It's also what makes the person feel safe. What makes the person feel secure? What emboldens them to stand up and to move and to keep going?
Yes, but honestly, absolutely insane stories. And please, if you get an update on your client and the situation, please let us know, because that is horrifying. I feel so bad for them for going through that. But y'all, that is all we have for today. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you, Eni, for being here.
It was always so much fun. Yes.
Yes. So, y'all, we are trying to get through these ghost mails as quickly as we can. We're plowing through. But if you have a ghost story that you would like us to read or break down on this show, you can send it to us at ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. And make sure that you send it through the email, because, like I always say, if you send it through TikTok, Instagram, whatever, it oftentimes gets lost in the DMs, and I don't like to filter through the spam. So, but otherwise, y'all, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day whenever you're listening to this. Thank you to the Parajunkies who are watching this on the live stream. Thank you for joining us for today's filming.
Also, if we haven't read your ghost mail yet, it is coming.
It's coming.
Yes.
We do read them in order.
Yes. But with that, y'all, thank you again, and stay spooky, y'all.